Introducing to you Joshua Becker, who's up here with me. Joshua wrote this book. It's on the screen. I'm holding here, The More of Less. He also started a website called becomingminimalist.com that more than 1 million people visit every month. So that's pretty cool. Good job. And so here's what happened. So I picked up a copy of this book myself because I'm interested in it and I need to do this in my own life. And I'm reading this, and then we're in a series right now, right? Called what? Who knows? Say Less. Good. Perfect. We're in the series called Less. And so I'm reading the book while we're doing this because it all fits together. And, Palmer sees this and we start talking about it. We realize that Joshua's, not too far from us. We're like, hey, let's see if he'd be willing to come in here, spend a few moments with us and share his story, his journey firsthand of what becoming a minimalist and living a life of simplicity has looked like and how it's worked for him. Because this started, I think, 11 years ago for you. So would you begin by just sharing with us how this whole thing started for you?
Yeah, sure. Good morning. Thanks for letting me be here, by the way. 10 years ago, I was living in Vermont. My life changed dramatically on a Saturday morning. My wife and I woke up to do our annual spring cleaning. I offered to clean out the garage. It's going to be this nice day. And I was pretty sure my 5-year-old son would enjoy the project with me. Yeah, I know, right? What a crazy thought. My son lasts about 20 seconds, and he's done, and he's off in the backyard playing, begging for me to come play with him. One thing leads to another. Hours later, I'm still working on the same garage. My son's running up every 20, 30 minutes to see if I'm done. I keep pushing him off. I happen to strike up a conversation with my neighbor who had been working on her house all morning long as well, complaining a little bit about how much time had gone into this project. And she says to me, that's why my daughter is a minimalist. She keeps telling me I don't need to own all this stuff. And I remember looking at my driveway, and here's this pile of dirty, dusty things that don't mean anything to me. Things I always would have said, my possessions aren't making me happy. I'm not looking for happiness in my possessions. But out of the corner of my eye, I see my 5-year-old son swinging alone on the swing set where he'd been all morning long. And suddenly I had this realization, not only was everything I owned not making me happy, everything I owned was actually taking me away from the very thing that did bring me happiness in life. And not just happiness, but meaning and purpose, significance and joy. And I think it's a very different realization. It's one thing to say our possessions aren't making us happy. It's another thing when we realize how our excess possessions are actually distracting us from happiness and purpose in life.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And I think something that we can identify with, most of us here, if not maybe all of us. So that started you, that launched you into this new way of life, I'll call it, this new kind of mission focus. So now, I don't know, here, 11 years later, but how did that impact you? Like what, what changed for you?
So my wife and I took about the next 9 months, and we went through our house room by room, got rid of about 60 to 70% of our stuff, trying to focus on this crazy idea that we would own just the stuff we actually need. What a novel idea, right? We began owning less, and as we did, I started realizing pretty early on some very significant benefits that were coming to me because I was owning less stuff, things that you could probably write down on a sheet of paper. Things like more time, because we were doing less cleaning and organizing. So I had more time, I had more money, I had more energy, I had more focus, I had less stress in my life. I became a better example for my kids, began living a better life for the environment. I found that I could own higher quality things because I was owning fewer things. I found that I began comparing myself less with other people, at least in terms of what they had compared to me. More generosity, more gratitude, more contentment, a better understanding of myself. Like everything we want in life,
it's not bad. It's not a bad list. Yeah,
I found by owning fewer and fewer things. It's very interesting. At one point, I thought to myself, where's this been my whole life? How come no one told me about minimalism before? And it occurred to me that this isn't new. Like Jesus was saying this 2,000 years ago. I was a pastor for 15 years. I knew what Jesus said about getting rid of your things and giving to the poor and not stockpiling treasures on earth. And yet for some reason, every time I read what Jesus said about selling possessions and giving to the poor, I thought to myself, boy, he sure wants me to live a boring life. Like, okay, maybe I get treasures in heaven, but life here is sure gonna be rough. Until I started actually doing what he said, and I realized, wait, this wasn't a call to unnecessary sacrifice. This was an invitation. Like, he was inviting us to a better way of living. Go figure that Jesus would have known best all along, right?
Yeah, he was right about one other thing, but I forget what it is. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yes. Jesus knew what was best. So that's very good, super helpful. I love that list, really, of all these benefits that come from this, because those are things that we do all want, that we're searching for, longing for. And so this whole kind of journey has been making that a reality in your life. And so for many of us here, we want that too, right? We want the reality of what you're talking about and what you write about. We want that to be our reality, our experience as well. But for many people here, we're on the front end of the 11 years, right? We're at the beginning of this kind of process and journey. I mean, we've all had garage sales, but let's be honest, right? We're on the front end of this. So what would you tell them is a good first step for people to take that say, I really want to start down this road?
So let me start by saying minimalism always looks different from one person to another. Like, there's no set rules here. It's always going to look different. We have different families, we have different careers, we have different passions and different hobbies, different things that God has called us to do with our life. So it's always going to look different from one person to another. So find some freedom in that. I find that oftentimes when I talk about owning less, when I talk about owning just the things we need to own, most minds race to the hardest thing that someone would ever have to get rid of. I like what you're saying, but how am I ever gonna get rid of my books or my sentimental items or my yarn stash? Am I ever gonna get rid of the women always love that joke. I don't get it. Or they start thinking of the hardest place in their house. Like, I really gotta go through my garage. I really gotta go through my attic or the storage unit. And I think that's wrong thinking. We should start easy, right? You don't run a marathon 26 miles one day, you run half a mile. So start in an easy place, maybe your car, your living room, your bedroom, something that you can complete. Get rid of the things you don't need out of that space. The next time you're in that space, you're like, oh, this is calming, this is peaceful. Where else can I have this in my life? And by the time you get to those more difficult spaces, you'll be motivated to do them, and your muscle will be built up to figure out how to do it.
Yeah, no, that's super good, super helpful. So for most people here, don't start in your closet then, because that's gonna be a train wreck right out of the gate for some of you. So start somewhere a little bit easier. Awesome, hey, I love it. If you're like, hey, I'm loving this series that we're doing, we're just a couple weeks in, we're gonna continue it today. I'm loving this conversation that we just had. You wanna go deeper into it. You really wanna start this process in your own life. You can pick up a copy of this book if that'd be helpful for you. They're in the coffee shop today. Joshua's gonna be over there after the service if you wanna say hi to him and meet him as well. So, okay, can you guys thank him for being here this morning with us?